Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Mixing with Murder by Granger. Narrated by Henrietta Meire. Chapter 1. When I was very small, not more than 3 years old at a guess, some grown-up figure took me to the children's playground in a nearby park. I wish I knew who it was. Even now, nearly 20 years later, I'd go and find her and give her a piece of my mind. I know it was female, so wasn't my dad, but it wasn't my grandma. It ought to have been my mother, because this was before she walked out on us all when I was 7 years old. But to my knowledge, my mother never took me to the park or anywhere else. In my one clear mental image of her before that time, she is sitting in front of the mirror of her dressing table, carefully applying lipstick. She is wearing a dress in shiny green material. She smells nice. I think she is beautiful. On that day in the park, however, I think I must have been with some older child in whose charge I'd unwisely been put. There were other people around, but they were, I suppose, totally occupied with their own small children and unaware of me. My memory serves up a background of shouts and laughter, dusty trees and trampled green grass, with many bare worn patches defiled by dog dirt. Against this urban idea of an open space, my temporary guardian hauled me up some steep, slippery metal rungs, and we found ourselves at the top of a long slide. Not the little slide for tots, but the big slide for older children. It gleamed in the sunshine, polished and silvery, a torture machine of the first order. Arms wrestled me into a seated position at the top, and a voice commanded, "Go on, down you go!" I was petrified. I clung to the raised metal edges. I was sure I was so high up I must be near the tree-tops and the birds, but I was too scared to raise my eyes from the ground far, far below. It looked very hard, unwelcoming and unstable at the same time. It lurched about in my vision, rising up and sinking, waltzing from side to side. The rims of the slide didn't look high enough to prevent me toppling out sideways. As well as dizzy, I felt horribly, painfully sick. I've disliked heights ever since. "No!" I screeched. "Oh, stop making a fuss!" commanded my kindly carer, and gave me a hearty shove. My clinging hands were ripped from their desperate grip. I hurtled down, wind whistling past my ears at a speed I'd never experienced before. At least, my outer shell did. My inner organs, heart and stomach, seemed to have remained back there at the top. I was powerless to do anything about it. I wasn't old enough to know what death was, but I was sure I was rocketing towards a final end of some sort. I'd never come out of this alive. I'd never go back home and see my family again. It lasted seconds and seemed to take hours. Then I reached the bottom and was caught in someone's arms. I was lifted from the slide and stood up on my wobbling legs. Belatedly, my heart and stomach caught up with me, and I was sick, really sick, as only a small child can be. My carer was furious. "What did you do that for, Francesca?" Above my head, a battle soon raged. "Well, I'm not going to clean her up." "You've got to. We can't take her home like that." The park keeper arrived, stout, angry and red-faced, and joined in, probably furious at the possibility of the park being sued. I howled. I was taken home, still howling, and there was another argument. The air filled with yelling voices, while I stood in the midst of it all, snivelling in my vomit-stained clothes. Then Grandma gathered me up, took me away to be bathed, and made everything right again. It would be nice, in the adult world, to have someone there who'd walk in when everything was going wrong, and make it come right. Pity it never happens except in detective stories, I suppose, when the detective does the sorting out. My experiences of detection have not been like that at all. There are always loose ends or ends which are tied up in unexpected or not altogether satisfactory fashion. Life takes a hand and plays odd tricks. I sometimes think the most unwelcome gift a genie could grant anyone would be that of being able to see into the future. Looking back is difficult enough. My childhood is full of memories like the slide one. I must have had some fun times, but they didn't imprint themselves in the same way. It makes me wonder whether some imp of ill fortune has always hopped along behind me, waiting his chance. Perhaps bad memories just squeeze out the good ones, like the evil that lives on after someone's death and the good that's interred with their bones. I know my Shakespeare. I mean to be a proper actor one day. I did most of a drama course in my teens until circumstances forced me to quit. I've only done amateur stuff since, but I'll make it to the real stage one day. You'll see. In the meantime, I take any job offered that's legal and lets me keep my independence. I even do a little confidential work for people. I like to call it that. Calling yourself a private detective is dodgy. Clients expect an office. The tax people expect proper records. Most of the work is stuff I wouldn't want to touch. A friend of mine, Susie Duke, runs a detective agency, and I know most of what she does is pretty seedy. I'm unofficial and take the jobs I want to do. Well, that had been the idea until that Monday morning in August. It was holiday time. The tourists had moved into London, and those office workers who could had taken themselves off to foreign sunspots. This year, as it happened, they needn't have bothered. We had a splendid sun-drenched summer at home. Even in Camden, where I was living, walking along the heat-baked pavements, one could imagine oneself in a distant exotic city where life at midday retreated behind shutters and all unnecessary activity was suspended. Along the length of Camden High Street, the racks of fantastically hued clothing outside the shops and packed on rails in its crowded markets no longer appeared garish and out of place. They looked quite natural, with the sequins sparkling in the sunlight, and the bright colours giving the impression parakeets had escaped from nearby Regent's Park Zoo and nestled among the coat hangers. The shopkeepers had dragged wooden chairs into the shade and watched passers-by with lazy indifference. Even the pushers selling marijuana down on the bridge over the canal couldn't be bothered to tout for trade. They leaned against the brickwork, watching the sluggish water down below. The occasional slow progress of a pleasure craft, walkers on the towpath, and the pale-faced group of youngsters sitting in a circle at the foot of the steps, like so many nomads round a campfire, to snort coke. Bonnie, my dog, didn't like the heat at all, so that morning I set out to take her for a walk right after breakfast before the sun got up. My intention was to take her as far as the newsagents, where my friend Ganesh works for his Uncle Hari, and I work on a part-time basis when needed. There I hoped to catch a cup of coffee and a look at the tabloids for free before strolling home. Bonnie was happy, pattering along, stopping to sniff occasionally. I felt pretty happy myself. But I'd only just turned out of the road where I lived when a large, sleek car purred to a halt beside me. The driver got out and hailed me across its roof. "Oi, Fran!" I'd taken little notice of the car, but a greeting like that can't be ignored. This wasn't just someone who knew my name. It was someone who felt free to be familiar. I squinted at him. The sun was shining into my face, but I could make out his burly form easily enough. He raised an arm and wiped perspiration from his brow. "I was on my way to your place," he said. "Hello, Harry," I said unenthusiastically. I made to walk on, even though I knew it was a vain attempt to escape destiny. If Harry was here looking for me, it was because his boss, Mickey Allerton, had sent him. The happiness in me evaporated. "Here we go again," a voice said in my brain. "What is it with you, Francesca Varady?" It was as if a booming voice like the old lottery commercial informed me it could be me. It nearly always was me, not winning lotteries but drawing the short straw. "Hey," I said crossly to the invisible imp, "just go and play in someone else's backyard for a bit, will you?" "Don't be in a hurry," Harry was saying in a friendly voice. He was a friendly man for a bouncer. He was a professional, he told me once. He prided himself on that.
"Didn't you hear me? I come looking for you. He wants to see you."
A kind of discretion prevented him naming his employer aloud, as if listening ears might be all around and some inkling of Mickey's private business leak out. Mickey Allerton is a very private man. I don't know if much of what he does is illegal. Probably it's mostly legal, on the very edge of the meaning of the word. He's the sort of person who doesn't take unnecessary risks. In Mickey's world, all the risks are borne by others. This is why a summons from him would make anyone wary. The horrible thought struck me that Allerton himself might be in the car. I stooped and peered inside. It was empty. I probably looked my relief.
"Nah,"
said Harry, watching me with amused tolerance.
"He's at the club. Go on, get in."
I wondered if it was any use pleading a pressing engagement, and admitted to myself that it wasn't. I opened the rear door of the car and slid onto the seat. Bonnie hopped in with me, puzzled at this curtailing of our walk, but loyally assuming we were going somewhere interesting. She scrabbled up beside me and settled down, ears pricked and paws neatly together like a dog who spent her life travelling in fancy motors. Harry retook his place behind the wheel and slammed the door. He turned to stare at me over the back of the seat.
"Oi,"
he said again.
"Don't let that dog get up on the cushions. It's all real leather. She'll scratch it."
I pushed Bonnie down to the well by my feet and asked boldly, "What does Mickey want?" I didn't expect to be told, but there was no harm in asking.
"How do I know?"
he returned. We rolled away from the curb. I sat studying the back of Harry's brick-red neck, where it bulged uncomfortably over his collar. Pearls of sweat trickled down it. His close-cropped, greying dark hair studded the roll of flesh with damp, battered bristles. It looked like a past-its-best nail-brush. I suppose we were heading towards the Silver Circle, one of Mickey's adult entertainment clubs. He had an office there. I'd originally met Allerton in the course of one of my previous investigations. I'd managed by pure chance to do something which had pleased him, but that didn't mean I was anxious to see him again. He, on the other hand, was apparently keen to see me. I ought to be feeling surprise instead of just dread. The surprise was missing because something had always told me that I would see him again, that it was a question of when, not if, Allerton would send for me. Once you're drawn into the orbit of someone like Mickey, your name goes down in his little book. But what could he want from me, of all people? I sat bolt upright. Not because I was worried about the real leather seat, but because my stomach muscles were clenched so tightly I couldn't lean back and relax. I might well have been an aristocrat on the way to the guillotine, although as a tumbrel the car was comfortable enough. One or two pedestrians looked curiously at us as Harry drove smoothly around one-way systems. Big Merc, chauffeur, me seated rigidly to attention in the back like a royal personage. I resisted the temptation to raise my hand in a listless wave as we glided past. At my feet, Bonnie whined. She had picked up my sense of unease and now didn't like this any more than I did. She pushed her little black nose into my knee, and I put down a hand to stroke her head reassuringly. Her ears drooped, and her brown eyes were anxious. She's a small animal of terrier type, mostly white with some black patches, curiously placed. If you look at her from one side, she's white with a black patch over her eye and a larger one on her flank. If you look at her from the other side, she has no patches at all, except a tiny one on her back leg. The result is that, depending on which side you see her from, she is like two different dogs. It's the sort of detail which might usefully confuse a witness if the occasion rose. It hasn't yet. Give it time. We had reached a narrow street beside the block which housed the club. Harry got out and, ever the gent, came round to the pavement side and opened the rear passenger door for me. I scrambled out, impeded by Bonnie, who was so keen to get out of the car she squeezed between my feet and nearly brought me down flat on my face.
"Steady does it,"
said Harry, putting out a meaty hand and gripping my shoulder. We set off towards the corner. I walked in front and Harry followed. That was so I couldn't double back and run away. When Harry wasn't driving Mickey's car, he was guarding the club door. It wasn't like Mickey to leave the entrance unattended, and it wasn't today. As Harry and I reached it, another male figure emerged from the gloom within and briefly intercepted us before he saw who was there. I didn't know the new man, but he was of a sort once seen, never forgotten. He was tall, with an exaggerated muscular build. I guessed it resulted from excessive weight training. I can't stand that kind of physique myself. Mostly those guys are all bulging biceps and triceps, with necks the same width as their heads. They have a funny way of standing with their arms hanging by their sides and their feet turned out. This one was blonde-haired, thin-lipped, and had the round, bright blue eyes you see on dolls. As is generally the case with bodybuilders, he clearly thought himself the bee's knees.
"Hello, Ivo,"
said Harry, and something in his voice suggested to me that he shared my opinion of Muscle Man.
"Boss there?" "You are late,"
said Ivo. He had a distinct accent I couldn't quite place.
"Mr. Allerton is waiting."
He emphasised the last word, and accompanied it with a disdainful glance at me. I met the glance with a steady look. I knew he meant Mr. Allerton wasn't to be kept waiting at any time, and certainly not by nonentities like me. He didn't like me staring back at him, showing neither awe, which he expected, nor admiration, which he'd have preferred. He blinked, and into the china blue eyes came a very nasty look indeed. Harry gave me a little push in the small of the back. I sensed a message. Harry didn't want me making an enemy of Ivo. He knew Ivo better than I did, and the warning push was to be taken seriously. Bonnie made a decision at this moment. She wasn't going into the club. She trusted my judgment up to a point, but that point had been passed. She didn't like the look of the place, and that was that. She flattened herself on the pavement, and I couldn't drag her forward. It was then Ivo made a mistake.
"Mr. Allerton is a busy man,"
he said.
"Get rid of that animal."
And he stooped to grab her collar. The next moment he jumped back, swearing in an unknown language, nursing the bitten fingers of his right hand. The blue eyes blazed with rage.
"Pick her up,"
snapped Harry to me. At the same time, he moved to place his own considerable bulk between me and the doorman. I scooped up Bonnie, tucked her under my arm, wriggling protestingly, and hurried past Ivo inside. He said something to me in his own language as I entered. I didn't know what it meant exactly, but I could guess the general drift. "It wasn't her fault. He was stupid to do that," I hissed to Harry.
"Yeah,"
said Harry quietly.
"But old Ivo there is a head case. You stay clear of him."
As it was still early, the club wasn't open for business, but getting ready for action later. The foyer smelled of cigarettes, alcohol, and sweat, mixed with that of commercial disinfectant and lavender air freshener wafting from the toilets. It was decorated with large glossy pictures of the entertainment on offer, every kind of female body beautiful, available, thanks to plastic surgery and bottled hair colour. In stark contrast, an elderly woman pushed a vacuum cleaner back and forth across the carpet. She had a wrinkled, darkly tanned skin, and in her broad, flat, expressionless face, all hope had long since died. She didn't look up as we passed her, but worked on bringing a note of mundane reality to that world of lip gloss and hairspray. The curtains over the arched entrance to the main part of the club had been looped back. Through them I could see the stage, and standing on it, a black-haired girl in a shocking pink leotard with her hands on her hips. She was glaring down at a small bald man who was yelling up at her.
"Try make it look sexy, can't you? You look like you're in a perishing aerobics class."
Before I could hear the girl's reply, we turned into a side corridor. I lost sight of the stage, but I heard a piano strike up, followed by the clumping of feet on the wooden boards and wails of despair from the bald repetiteur. Mickey Allerton was waiting for me in his office at the end of the corridor. He was a well-built, well-groomed man in his 50s, with the softest-looking skin I'd ever seen on an adult, male or female, like a baby's. His back was to me, and he was watching one of the 3 CCTV screens behind his desk. It was the one showing the stage on which the girl was dancing. She had energy, if not grace.
"She'll have to go,"
said Allerton as we came in. "Fine," I said in relief, turning back to the door. I cannoned into Harry, who gently but firmly turned me back again to face the desk. Allerton swivelled in his chair to face me. His eyes were silvery grey, like fish scales.
"Not you,"
he said.
"Her."
He jerked a thumb at the screen behind him.
"No talent, that one."
He nodded at a chair.
"Sit down, Fran. Why are you holding that dog?"
"She bit your doorman," I said. "Look, I haven't got that kind of talent either." I put Bonnie on the ground, but imprisoned her between my legs. I wasn't risking her snapping at Mickey if he came out from behind that desk. She was still in combative mode, with the ruff of hair at the scruff of her neck standing up stiffly. Allerton ignored the information about Bonnie biting the doorman. That was Ivo's lookout.
"Is it likely,"
he asked in a weary voice,
"that I had Harry bring you here because I wanted to hire you as an artiste?"
"No," I admitted. I'm on the short side, and have the kind of figure my grandma described as gamine. Other people have been less tactful. The girl out there on the stage might not be talented, but at least she looked right.
"Then don't talk stupid. Harry, go and get us some coffee."
I was sorry to see Harry go. He was Allerton's heavy, but I still felt safer with him there.
"Well, Fran,"
said Allerton, leaning back in his chair and placing his well-manicured hands, palms down, on the desktop. He wore a large ring with some kind of gold coin set in it.
"Long time no see."
It wasn't that long a time, but as far as I was concerned, it couldn't be long enough. I gave him a sickly smile. He didn't return it. Allerton didn't waste smiles, but he extended opening courtesies with a vague gesture of his beringed right hand.
"How are things? Got a job?"
"Not at the moment," I confessed. "I was working as a waitress, but the place was closed down." He nodded.
"I heard about that. They were working some kind of wine scam, weren't they?"
He tapped his fingers on the desk.
"I'm very careful where I buy wine for my establishments. I've got a reputation."
Yes, he had. I bet no one would dare to try and sell him plonk bottled up under an expensive label.
"I'm glad you're free at the moment,"
he went on.
"I've got a little job for you. You're still in the private detection business, aren't you? Part-time, as I understand."
Now he grinned briefly.
"I heard about the play, too."
There seemed to be nothing about my recent activities Mickey Allerton didn't know. "I'm sort of still in the private investigation business," I said. "But I haven't got the facilities to help you, Mr. Allerton. I'm on my own."
"Facilities?"
He mimicked my voice and looked amused.
"You don't half come out with some winners, Fran. I don't need any facilities, whatever they are. I just need you to do a little job for me."
"Susie Duke is still running her detective agency," I said desperately. "Perhaps she'd be better."
"You don't know what I want, do you? So shut up and listen."
He invited me.
"Susie Duke isn't suitable for this one. You are. Just the ticket, in fact."
Harry brought in the coffee at that point. Allerton opened a drawer in his desk and took out a small dispenser of sugar substitute tablets. He tapped 2 into his cup.
"Got to watch my weight,"
he said.
"Doctor's orders."
"Give up the sugar altogether," I suggested. He shook his head.
"I can't drink coffee without a sweetener. Tea, just possibly, but coffee? No way."
He contemplated the steam spiralling from his cup. Harry handed me my cup and retreated to the back of the room. Bonnie, at my feet, had relaxed her guard and settled down. I waited for Mickey to tell me in what way I was just the ticket. He seemed to be taking pleasure in making me wait, Or perhaps I was just so wound up it seemed as though he was. He picked up a spoon, stirred his coffee, put the spoon gently back in the saucer. At long last he looked up. He opened his mouth. This was it. He was going to announce some awful, shattering news. I held my breath.
I tried that Atkins diet,
he said. Oh, yes? This was hardly what I'd expected, and it threw me completely. Probably this was Mickey's intention. I tried to sound normal, but my voice was like something issuing from a computer. How'd you get on? I croaked tinnily. He shook his head in sorrow.
I like roast potatoes with my Sunday lunch, and chips with my steak. I found it difficult to give them up. Besides, my doctor said it wasn't right for me.
An Achilles' heel, with Mickey Allerton, whom I'd been inclined to view as omnipotent, in thrall to his medical adviser. I wondered if he might be a hypochondriac. The most unlikely people are. Still, any sign of weakness in him was to be stored up in memory. You never knew, it might be useful one day.
It's not so much a job I've got for you,
he said.
It's more an errand. I want you to take a message to someone for me.
I didn't ask him what was wrong with the phone, email, or snail mail. But I was reminded of that poor Greek bloke who ran miles with the news of some victory, and once he'd delivered it, dropped dead, and he'd brought good news. I had a funny feeling Allerton's message would bring the recipient bad news. The ancient custom, as I'd heard it, was to kill the bearer of such tidings. Either way, being a messenger isn't a job with good long-term prospects. Allerton had resorted to the desk drawer again, and now drew out a glossy photograph. He passed it to me across the desk. I took it gingerly. It was of one of his artistes, a promotional picture like all the others tacked up on a display board in the foyer. This one was a pretty girl of about my age. She wore an outfit which tipped the nod towards the cowgirl style, more rhinestones than it seemed possible to attach to so little material, dinky boots with high heels and completed by a little white Stetson atop her mass of blonde curly hair. Her face was plastered with too much makeup, a lot of pearlized mauve eyeshadow and glitter stuff on her eyelashes. She was giving the camera a come-hither look while clinging to an upright pole.
Lisa Stallard, dancer.
Mickey passed out his information in laconic, bite-sized snippets.
Good one.
He leaned back.
She walked out,
he said. There was a hint of surprise in his voice. Artistes didn't walk out on him. This was probably a first. He still couldn't quite accept it.
I want her back. Customers liked her.
I had every sympathy with the girl who'd walked out of this seedy dump. She had courage. If Mickey wanted her back, I decided, he could go and find her himself. I wasn't going to do it for him. Look, I said, if she doesn't want to work here, well, I expect she's got a reason. The fish-silver eyes fixed me unpleasantly. Behind me, Harry gave a faint, warning cough. It could be anything. I ploughed on in an effort to retrieve my social gaffe. I mean, a sudden departure doesn't suggest she doesn't like it here. Perhaps she's got a family emergency at home. Allerton leaned forward slightly.
She went without a word. I paid her good money. She's not gone working for anyone else. I asked around the other clubs. But you're right about her going home. That's what she's probably done. One of the other girls told me.
He jerked a thumb at the CCTV camera behind him. On it, the girl in the pink leotard was sitting on the edge of the stage drinking a bottle of water.
That one,
said Allerton.
The stupid, talentless bitch.
He added ungratefully. The pink leotard girl was a snitch, and the runaway had been foolish to confide in her. If you're going to do something Mickey Allerton won't like, at least don't tell anyone else working for him what you intend. He could see what I was thinking and shook his head.
I don't want you to get the wrong idea, Fran. I could send Harry here after her, but she'd misunderstand. I don't want to put the frighteners on her. That's why I want you to go.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?